My name is Clara. I'm 30 years old, and last March, my fiancé, Leo, asked me to be his wife. After 6 years together, the proposal wasn't a shock, but it was still one of those breathtaking moments that you replay in your mind 100 times over. He is my best friend, my confidant, and without a doubt, the most genuinely supportive person I have ever known. He has seen me at my absolute worst and celebrated me at my best, never once wavering. So when he got down on one knee in the quiet comfort of our living room on a lazy Saturday afternoon, with sunlight streaming through the windows and our favorite song playing softly in the background, it felt like the final, perfect piece of our life was clicking into place. It was a simple, intimate moment, meant only for us, and it was everything I had ever dreamed of. I was so full of joy, a feeling so bright and overwhelming I thought I might burst from it. Unfortunately, that pure, unadulterated happiness was short-lived. As soon as I shared our wonderful news, it seemed my mother and my half-sister, Zoe, decided to make my engagement their personal battleground. My mom married my stepdad, Mark, when I was just 5 years old. Zoe, who is now 24, is their daughter. While we grew up under the same roof, we've never shared that bond you read about in books or see in movies. We were more like acquaintances, two people who happened to share a bathroom and a dinner table, tolerating each other's existence rather than building any real sisterly connection. The root of the problem, as far as I can tell, has always been Zoe's bizarre and relentless competitive streak with me. It wasn't just sibling rivalry, it felt deeper, almost like my successes were a personal insult to her. It started with the small, childish things. I remember one year I came home with a report card that was slightly better than hers, and she threw a screaming tantrum that lasted for hours, until my mom and Mark finally calmed her down. Another time, a visiting relative complimented a drawing I did, and Zoe promptly tore it up the second the adult left the room, claiming I had copied her idea. As we grew older, the stakes of her competition just got higher and more serious. I worked hard in school, earning an academic scholarship that allowed me to go to a great college, an opportunity I was incredibly proud of. Zoe, on the other hand, showed little interest in academics and didn't go to college at all, which was her choice, but she always spoke of my degree with a strange bitterness. My stable, loving 6-year relationship with Leo was another sore spot for her. She drifted from one chaotic, messy relationship to the next, each one ending more dramatically than the last. Now, with my engagement, it feels like she views my happiness not as something to celebrate, but as a personal vendetta against her. My joy is somehow an attack on her own life choices. Leo and I had decided on a January wedding. We both loved the idea of a cozy, intimate ceremony, surrounded by about 70 of our closest friends and family. It felt warm, personal, and perfectly suited to us. I dove into the planning with so much excitement, eagerly creating Pinterest boards and researching vendors. I naively assumed my family would share in my excitement. Oh, how wrong I was. The first hint of trouble came when I called my mom to tell her the news. I was practically bouncing with excitement, my voice probably an octave higher than usual. But her reaction wasn't the squeal of joy I had expected. There was a pause, a beat of silence that felt heavier than it should have. "Oh," she finally said, "Zoe is not going to like this." I let out a nervous laugh, thinking it must be a joke, some dry attempt at humor. "What do you mean?" I asked, still trying to keep the mood light. But she wasn't joking at all. She explained, in a tone that was suddenly serious, that my engagement would be deeply hurtful to Zoe. The reason? Because my younger sister was single and still trying to figure things out. I was floored. Was I supposed to put my life on hold because my sister's was in a state of flux? I tried to brush the comment aside, attributing it to my mom's tendency to overprotect Zoe. A few weeks later, however, things took a sharper turn. Zoe announced that she was getting married. Her fiancé was a guy she had been dating for a grand total of 3 months. Now, I do my best not to judge how other people live their lives, but this entire situation felt deeply off. Zoe has always been impulsive, but this was on another level. Marrying a man none of us had even met after only 12 weeks of knowing him, it didn't just feel impulsive, it felt reckless. Still, I kept my mouth shut. It was her life and her decision to make. It was none of my business. Predictably, the whirlwind marriage blew up just as quickly as it began. By July, it was over. Her husband, Ben, had cheated on her, with her best friend, no less. The whole situation was a heartbreaking mess. 2 months after their wedding, she was filing for divorce. I genuinely felt terrible for her. No one deserves that kind of betrayal and humiliation. I reached out, sending her texts and offering to talk, hoping to be the supportive older sister she never really had. But every attempt I made was met with a cold, dismissive shoulder. It felt like she was angry at me, and I couldn't for the life of me figure out why. Then, slowly, the pieces started to click into place. She didn't want my support or my sympathy. She wanted to blame me. From what I've managed to gather from family gossip, Zoe believes that my engagement announcement triggered her into her rushed marriage. It was as if she saw my happiness as some kind of challenge, a race to the altar that she had to win at all costs. When her own marriage imploded so spectacularly, I guess it was easier for her to channel all her anger and resentment toward me than to face the consequences of her own impulsive actions. By the time the vibrant colors of fall began to settle over the city, the atmosphere within my family had grown decidedly chilly. Zoe and I hadn't spoken a single word to each other since her divorce, a silence that felt both heavy and fragile, like a thin sheet of ice threatening to crack. My mom was acting strangely too. Every time I tried to bring up the wedding planning, sharing a detail about the floral arrangements or asking her opinion on a menu choice, she would grow quiet and deftly change the subject. It was as if the word wedding had become taboo in our conversations. I tried to be understanding. I told myself she was just trying to be sensitive, that she didn't want to discuss weddings so soon after Zoe's had fallen apart in such a spectacular fashion. I should have seen the signs for what they were. Not sensitivity, but a storm gathering on the horizon. Honestly, nothing can truly prepare you for the sheer, mind-bending absurdity of being guilt-tripped over your own wedding. I always thought the stress of wedding planning would come from budgets, seating charts, or logistical nightmares. I never, in a million years, imagined it would be because my own mother and sister decided to turn my happiness into their own twisted emotional circus. But there we were. In mid-November, with just 2 months to go, Leo and I sent out our wedding invitations. Seeing them all stamped and ready to go, I felt a surge of pure, unadulterated excitement. The beautiful cardstock, the elegant script, it all made it feel so real. This was finally happening. That feeling of bliss lasted for approximately 48 hours. Then I got the call. It was my mom. I remember glancing at my phone screen and feeling a small flicker of surprise. She's never been a big phone person. She's more of a text once a month to make sure you're still alive kind of mom. I answered cheerfully, assuming she'd received the invitation and wanted to gush about how lovely it was. I really should have known better. The conversation started innocently enough. She asked how I was, how Leo was, the usual pleasantries. Then her tone shifted, becoming casual in a way that was completely unnatural. "So," she began, "you're really going through with this wedding then?" I was a little taken aback by the phrasing, but I brushed it off. "Yeah, of course, Mom. Everything's set," I said, my voice full of enthusiasm. "We've booked the venue, the caterer, the flowers. Most of it's already paid for." That's when she sighed. It wasn't a normal sigh of tiredness or relief. It was a loud, exaggerated, theatrical sound that seemed to suck all the air out of the room. It was a sigh that screamed, "You are about to break someone's heart, and you don't even care." "Well," she said, dragging the word out as if she were about to deliver a devastating prophecy, I've been doing a lot of thinking about Zoe, and I really think you should reconsider. I held the phone, a wave of confusion washing over me. My mind raced, trying to figure out what she could possibly mean. Reconsider what, Mom? She hesitated, taking a deep, fortifying breath as if she were preparing for a presidential debate. I just don't think it's a good time for a wedding, Clara. Zoe is still so heartbroken from the divorce. Having a big celebration like this, so soon after everything she's been through, it just feels a little insensitive, don't you think? I honestly thought I had misheard her. The request was so ludicrous, so utterly beyond the realm of reason that my brain couldn't quite process it. "Wait," I said, my voice barely a whisper. "Are you asking me to cancel my wedding for Zoe?" "Well, yes," she replied, her tone now sickeningly calm, as if this were the most reasonable request in the world. "She has been through so much trauma. Seeing you get married, celebrating your happiness right after her divorce, it's just going to hurt her so much, Clara. It will set back her healing." I was completely and utterly stunned. I couldn't form a coherent thought, let alone a response. "Mom," I finally managed to say, my voice trembling slightly, "we have been planning this wedding for almost a year. The venue is booked and paid for. The deposits are non-refundable. We have guests flying in from out of state. How can you possibly ask me to just cancel it?" She didn't miss a beat. "You could always do something small," she suggested, as if offering a perfectly simple compromise. "A quiet little ceremony at a church, maybe, with just the immediate family. That way, you still get married, but it's not such a big, flashy production. You wouldn't be flaunting it." Flaunting it. The word hit me like a slap in the face. Flaunting it. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. "Mom, this has nothing to do with flaunting anything. This is about celebrating my love and my relationship with Leo. We've been together for 6 years. This is our day, our celebration." She sighed again, this one even heavier and more disappointed than the last. "I just think," she said slowly, her voice dripping with emotional manipulation, "that if you really loved your sister, you would do this one thing for her. She needs our support right now. She needs time to heal, and a big wedding is only going to make things so much worse for her." At that point, a hot wave of fury washed over me, but I thought to keep my voice steady. "Mom, I understand that Zoe is going through a rough time. I truly do. But her situation has absolutely nothing to do with me and Leo. We have been looking forward to this, planning this for so long. It is not fair to ask us to change everything because of choices she made." She didn't like that. Her choices, Clara. Her voice turned sharp and cold. She didn't choose to have her husband cheat on her. She didn't choose to have her life completely fall apart. "Yeah," I shot back, the dam of my patience finally breaking. "But she did choose to marry a guy she barely knew after only 3 months." That was the wrong thing to say. My mom completely lost it. She launched into a tirade, accusing me of being cruel, selfish, and heartless. She couldn't believe I had so little compassion for my own sister. Then came the classic gut-punching line. "I thought I raised you to be better than this." I couldn't take it anymore. I was done. "Mom," I said, my voice dangerously quiet, "I am not canceling my wedding. This discussion is over." I hung up the phone, my entire body shaking with a mixture of anger and disbelief. I immediately called Leo, my hand still trembling so hard I could barely press the screen. He picked up on the second ring. I told him everything, the words spilling out of me in a frantic, disjointed torrent, the demand to cancel, the talk of a small ceremony, the accusation of me flaunting my happiness. He was quiet on the other end of the line, listening patiently until I was finished. His response wasn't angry, just filled with a calm, profound sense of disbelief. "Wait, let me get this straight," he said slowly. She wants us to cancel our wedding that we've planned for a year and paid thousands of dollars for because of Zoe's 3-month marriage that just ended? Who even asks their own daughter to do that? His bafflement mirrored my own, and hearing him say it out loud validated everything I was feeling. It wasn't me. I wasn't the crazy one. I wish I could say that was the end of it, he murmured, his voice laced with concern, but I have a feeling it's not. He was right, of course. That phone call wasn't the end. It was the formal declaration of war. Over the next few weeks, my mom doubled down, launching a relentless campaign of guilt and manipulation. She called me every few days, each conversation a slight variation of the same theme. "Clara, I was just on the phone with Zoe. She's so heartbroken she can barely get out of bed," she'd say one day. The next, it would be, "A small, intimate wedding would mean so much to the family. It would show you care." She even tried to rope Leo into her scheme. He came home from work one evening looking annoyed. "Your mom called me today," he said. She had tried to appeal to his sense of reason, telling him, "You're such a thoughtful person, Leo. I just know you'll understand why this is so important for Zoe right now." Luckily, Leo is not one to be manipulated. He shut her down immediately and politely, telling her that he stood with me and that our wedding plans were final. When her direct attacks on me and her attempt to sway Leo failed, my mom unleashed her secret weapon, Zoe herself. My sister, who hadn't spoken to me in months, suddenly started texting me. They weren't friendly texts. They were little passive-aggressive grenades lobbed directly into my life. "Must be nice to have everything go so perfectly for you all the time. Don't you think it's a little soon for such a big celebration? Just seems weird." Then came the one that made me red. "January feels like such a weird time for a wedding. Are you sure you didn't pick that month just to rub my divorce in my face?" Rub it in her face? I couldn't believe the audacity. I had booked our venue 10 months ago. I tried ignoring her, deleting the messages without responding, but she only escalated. She started calling, and when I didn't pick up, she'd leave these long, rambling, guilt-soaked voicemails. She'd talk about how hard it was for her to even think of the concept of a wedding, and how my blatant insensitivity was making her healing process so much more difficult. The worst part was how my mom and Zoe seemed to be working in tandem, feeding off each other's drama in a toxic feedback loop. My mom would call me in the afternoon and say something like, "Zoe was crying all night. She just can't get the image of your wedding out of her head." Then, like clockwork, a text from Zoe would arrive an hour later. "Mom is so upset about how you're handling this. You're really hurting her." It was emotionally exhausting, a constant draining assault on my peace of mind. I felt like I was at my breaking point. The real implosion, the moment of truth, came at a family Christmas gathering. It was a dinner at my aunt's house, and Leo and I went hoping for a few hours of normalcy, a brief respite from the relentless stress. Of course, my mom and Zoe were there, a fact that should have been a giant red flag. The tension was palpable from the moment we walked in. Zoe barely looked at me, and every time I mentioned a single detail about the wedding to another relative, she would let out a loud, theatrical huff or roll her eyes dramatically. At one point, I was chatting with my aunt about the flowers, and Zoe muttered, just loud enough for me to hear, "Must be nice to waste so much money on a party when some people can barely pick up the pieces of their lives." I bit my tongue and ignored her, knowing that a reaction was exactly what she wanted. Later in the evening, just when I was starting to relax, it happened. In the middle of the crowded living room, Zoe suddenly burst into tears. It wasn't quiet crying, it was a full-on, body-shaking, gasping for air performance. "I just can't believe how cruel people can be," she sobbed, as everyone froze, their conversations screeching to a halt. My aunt rushed to her side, asking what was wrong. And that was Zoe's cue. "It's just so hard," she cried, looking around the room to make sure she had everyone's attention. I've been through so much this year, and I have to sit here and listen to Clara talk about her perfect wedding like nothing else in the world matters. She knows how much pain I'm in, but she just doesn't care. My mom, of course, chimed in immediately, rushing to rub Zoe's back as if she were a martyr. "She's right, Clara," my mom said, her voice filled with disappointment. "You need to be more considerate. You have no idea how hard this has been for her." That's when I finally lost it. I had held my tongue for weeks, absorbing their toxicity in silence, but I was done. "This wedding has nothing to do with Zoe," I said, my voice dangerously calm as I stood up. "Leo and I have been planning this for a year. If she's upset, that is not my fault. Maybe she should take some responsibility for rushing into a bad marriage instead of blaming me for all of her problems." The room went dead silent. Zoe's tears vanished, replaced instantly by pure rage. "How dare you?" she snapped. "You don't know what it's like to have your life fall apart. You've had everything handed to you, your scholarship, your perfect boyfriend, your perfect little life. You've never had to struggle for anything." I looked her dead in the eye. "You're right, Zoe. I don't know what it's like to have my life fall apart," I said, my voice shaking with anger. "But that's because I don't make reckless, impulsive decisions just to compete with other people. Maybe if you spent less time being bitter and more time working on yourself, you wouldn't be in this situation." At that point, Leo stood up and took my hand. "We're leaving," he said firmly to the stunned room. I didn't argue. On the silent drive home, I replayed the fight in my head, a small part of me wondering if I'd been too harsh. But the more I thought about it, the more I knew I had every right to stand up for myself. What truly stuck with me, though, was the image of my mom instantly defending Zoe without a moment's hesitation, without once considering my feelings. It was painfully clear. She had chosen her favorite, and it wasn't me. The next day, a text from my mom confirmed it. "You owe your sister an apology for what you said last night. You were unnecessarily cruel." I didn't reply. I was done apologizing for things that were not my fault. It was clear they would never back down, and in that moment, I knew I had to start preparing for the worst. For those of you who have been following this saga on the online forum and offering your support, thank you. It has meant more to me than you know. After the absolute disaster at the family Christmas dinner, I knew I had reached a turning point. A hard line had to be drawn. My mother and Zoe were not just being unreasonable or difficult, they were actively and maliciously trying to sabotage my happiness. My previous strategy of ignoring their behavior clearly wasn't working, and every attempt I made to defend myself simply added more fuel to their dramatic fire. I felt trapped in a cycle of their creation. The only way to win, I realized, was to stop playing the game altogether. The only way to move forward was to cut them out of the wedding completely. Making that decision wasn't easy. It felt monumental, like I was severing a limb. But I knew deep in my gut that it was necessary for my own sanity. 2 days after the awful dinner, I sat down with Leo on our couch, the faint glow of the television casting shadows across the room, and I laid everything out. "I think I need to uninvite them," I said, the words catching in my throat. I could feel a familiar lump forming, the kind that comes right before tears. My mom and Zoe, if they're there on our wedding day, they're just going to make things miserable. They'll find a way to cause a scene. Leo didn't even hesitate. He reached out, took my hand, and nodded. "I've been thinking the same thing, Clara," he said, his voice firm and reassuring. "It sucks. It really, really sucks that it's come to this. But this is your day. It's our day, and you deserve to enjoy every single second of it without worrying about what stunt they're going to pull next." His immediate, unwavering support was like a weight lifting from my chest. Even so, the thought of actually doing it, of formally cutting my own mother and sister out of my wedding, was daunting. This wasn't just about them. It was about the potential ripple effect, the way this could fracture the rest of the family. But I couldn't let their toxicity overshadow the beautiful day Leo and I had worked so hard to plan. So I opened my laptop and drafted an email. I spent a long time on it, making sure the tone was right. I kept it short, factual, and devoid of the angry, emotional accusations I so badly wanted to hurl at them. I stated calmly that their actions over the past few months, the constant guilt-tripping, the spreading of rumors, and the orchestrated drama at Christmas, had made it painfully clear that they were not supportive of our marriage. I told them that their behavior had caused me significant stress and anxiety. Therefore, for the sake of my own peace of mind, I had made the difficult decision to uninvite them from the wedding. I read it over one last time, took a deep breath, and hit send. In that instant, I felt a profound sense of relief, as if I'd finally set down a burden I'd been carrying for years. The fallout was immediate and explosive. Within hours, the responses began to roll in. My mom's was first, and let me tell you, it was a doozy. Her email was a masterclass in emotional manipulation. She called me cold-hearted, ungrateful, and accused me of single-handedly tearing the family apart. It was filled with dramatic, overwrought phrases like, "I never thought my own daughter would betray me like this," and "You have chosen a man over your own blood." For the grand finale, she threw in a low blow about how my father, if he were still alive, would be ashamed of me. Classic. I read it, felt a familiar pang of hurt, and then deleted it without replying. Next came Zoe's response. It was exactly what I had expected, a furious tirade dripping with self-pity. She accused me of being jealous of her, though I'm still not entirely sure what I'm supposed to be jealous of, and claimed I was only doing this to punish her for being honest about her feelings. Her email ended with a final, menacing flourish. "You will regret this when you realize you've destroyed this family. I hope you're happy." I didn't reply to her either. There was simply no point. The backlash didn't stop there. Over the next few days, the family members my mom and Zoe had already poisoned against me started to call and text. My uncle called to tell me I was being immature and that I should just let it go for the sake of family harmony. A cousin I barely speak to left a 3-minute voicemail telling me she couldn't believe I would do something so horrible to my own mother. At first, it felt overwhelming, and I started to doubt myself. But then something amazing happened. The people who actually matter, the people who truly know me, started showing up. My dad's sister, my wonderful Aunt Carol, called me. "I am so proud of you for standing up for yourself," she said, her voice warm and steady. "You have put up with their nonsense for far too long, Clara. It's about time you put your foot down." My cousin Chloe, who had been my secret informant on Zoe's antics, sent me a long text that made me tear up. "Don't let them get to you. They're being ridiculous. Everyone who really knows you and loves you is on your side." Even my godmother, one of the most no-nonsense people I know, called to tell me I was doing the right thing. "Your wedding should be about love and celebration," she said firmly, "not drama and bitterness." Their support was a balm for my soul. For the first time in months, I felt like I wasn't alone in this fight. But of course, Mom and Zoe weren't going to accept defeat quietly. About a week later, I got another call from Chloe. "You are not going to believe this," she said, her voice a mixture of amusement and annoyance. "Zoe has a new story she's telling people. Now she's saying you uninvited her because you're threatened by her." I couldn't help but let out a short, sharp laugh. "Threatened? Threatened by what, exactly?" "Apparently," Chloe continued, "she's claiming that you're worried Leo has feelings for her. She's telling people he's been secretly flirting with her for months and that you found out and are trying to get rid of her to save face." The accusation was so ridiculous, so utterly detached from reality, that I didn't even know how to respond. It was infuriating that she would try to drag Leo's good name into her web of lies, but it was also just pathetic. "That's just desperate," I finally said. Honestly, most people don't believe her, Chloe reassured me. But you know how she is. She'll keep spinning the story until she finds someone gullible enough to listen. I decided right then that I was done wasting my energy on Zoe's delusions. My focus was now singular, protecting my peace and ensuring my wedding day was as joyful and stress-free as possible. To that end, Leo and I hired a couple of security guards for the event. It felt extreme, something you see in movies, but given the circumstances, it felt necessary. We were done being reactive. It was time to build a fortress around our happiness. By the time New Year's rolled around, I felt like I was finally regaining control. They could spin their narratives all they wanted, but they were not going to ruin this for us. I know it hasn't been long since my last post, but something just happened that I absolutely needed to share with you all immediately. Just when I thought the situation couldn't possibly get any more bizarre, it did. By the time January rolled around, with our wedding just around the corner, I honestly thought I had seen every possible shade of Zoe's jealousy and manipulative behavior. But what she tried to pull next left me absolutely floored and, frankly, a little disgusted. If you thought her previous antics were bad, buckle up, because this one takes the cake. It all started one evening last week. Leo and I were finally having a quiet night, curled up on the couch, trying to just relax and watch a movie. After months of stress, it felt like a small slice of heaven. That is, until Leo's phone buzzed on the coffee table. He glanced at it, and I saw his expression shift instantly, his relaxed posture stiffening. "What is it?" I asked, my own body tensing in preparation for the inevitable drama. "It's Zoe," he said, his voice tight with confusion as he handed me the phone. I read the message, my eyes scanning the words in disbelief. "Hey, Leo, I really need someone to talk to. I know you probably think I'm a terrible person right now, but I'm really struggling, and I feel like you're the only one who understands. Can we meet up?" I stared at the screen, a cold, uneasy feeling creeping up my spine. On the surface, I suppose, the message could seem innocent to a stranger. But this was Zoe. We knew her methods. Nothing she did was ever innocent. "I don't like this," Leo said, turning to me. "This feels off." "Because it is off," I replied, handing the phone back to him. "She's never even liked you, Leo. She's always been dismissive and cold. Why on earth would she suddenly want to confide in you about her deepest feelings?" We both knew it was a trap. We agreed it was best to simply ignore her, to not engage with whatever game she was playing. But the messages kept coming. Over the next few days, she sent him a string of increasingly desperate-sounding texts. She wrote about how lonely she felt, how she had no one else to turn to, and how much she admired his kindness and strength through all of this. It was a calculated performance of vulnerability, and it was nauseating. I need to remind you, Leo has never had a single meaningful conversation with Zoe in the 6 years we've been together. He's always been polite, of course, but they weren't friends. They weren't even friendly. This sudden, gushing outpouring of admiration felt completely manufactured. Leo was just as creeped out as I was, but we decided to wait and see what her endgame was. We didn't have to wait long. A few nights later, another message came through, and this one was so blatantly manipulative it made my blood boil. Leo showed it to me without a word. "I've been thinking a lot about you lately. I know it's wrong, but I can't help it. I feel like we have a connection that Clara doesn't understand. I don't know what to do with these feelings." I was furious. It wasn't just the brazen attempt to sabotage our wedding days before our wedding. It was the sheer disrespect of it all. The audacity to type out those words, to try and wedge herself between us with such a cheap, transparent trick was staggering. She wasn't just trying to hurt me anymore, she was trying to poison what Leo and I had built together. Leo, bless his heart, saw the rage in my eyes and immediately asked, "How do you want to handle this?" I took a long, deep breath, forcing myself to think strategically, not emotionally. Let's not give her the satisfaction of a direct response, I said. There's no point. Block her number. But before you do, take screenshots of everything, every single message. He did exactly that, and we saved the screenshots as receipts, our undeniable proof in case she decided to spin some new wild narrative. The next morning, I decided I wasn't going to let this slide. I didn't engage with her directly, but I composed a new email. I sent it to my mom and the few other close family members who had been caught in the crossfire. I kept the message simple and factual. I explained what Zoe had done, attached the screenshots of her messages to Leo, and laid out the truth in stark black and white. This behavior is toxic and manipulative, I wrote. I have done everything I can to keep the peace, but this crosses a fundamental line. I hope now you can all understand why I made the difficult decision to exclude her from our wedding. The responses were predictably mixed. My mom replied almost instantly, defending Zoe with a ferocity that was as baffling as it was hurtful. She claimed I must have misunderstood Zoe's intentions, that I was blowing things wildly out of proportion. She even had the gall to suggest that perhaps Leo had misread the messages or led her on. I can't believe you would accuse your own sister of something so horrible, my mom wrote. Zoe is just going through a tough time, and you are making everything about you. I rolled my eyes so hard I almost sprained something. But the others were on my side. Chloe called me the second she read the email. "Are you serious?" she practically yelled into the phone. I knew Zoe was a piece of work, but this is next level. Good for you for cutting her off for good. My Aunt Carol was just as outraged. "You are absolutely right to keep her away from your wedding," she said, her voice full of conviction. "She has proven time and time again that she does not respect you or your relationship, and this just confirms it beyond any doubt." Their support meant the world to me, but I would be lying if I said Zoe's stunt didn't leave a scar. It was humiliating. It felt like she was trying to publicly undermine the foundation of my relationship with Leo. Was it all just jealousy, spite, a twisted need for attention? Maybe it was all of the above. Whatever her reasons, I knew one thing for sure. She was not going to win. With only a few days left until the wedding, I doubled down on our security measures. I personally called our venue coordinator, gave them a heads up about the entire situation, and even emailed them photos of my mom and Zoe with explicit instructions that they were not to be allowed on the property under any circumstances. It felt surreal, but after everything they had pulled, I wasn't taking any chances. Zoe's dirty tricks might have shaken me, but they didn't break me. If anything, they made me more determined than ever to stand my ground and protect our day. I hope this is the last time I have to write about this family drama. For anyone who has followed this journey, let me tell you, I thought I had prepared myself for every possible scenario leading up to my wedding. I had contingency plans for rain, for vendor mix-ups, for a guest drinking too much. But nothing, absolutely nothing, can truly prepare you for the moment your own family tries to bulldoze the happiest day of your life. The morning started off so beautifully, it felt like a dream. I woke up to a perfect January sky, crisp and clear. The venue, a historic manor with sprawling gardens, looked absolutely magical. The staff had arranged the flowers and decorations exactly as we'd envisioned over the past year, and the entire place hummed with a quiet, joyful energy. My bridesmaids, a wonderful and hilarious group of women led by my maid of honor, Olivia, kept me laughing and relaxed while we had our hair and makeup done, sipping champagne and listening to a playlist of our favorite songs. For the first time in months, I felt a sense of profound peace. Leo and I had agreed to do a first look before the ceremony, so once I was finally zipped into my dress, I stepped outside into the quiet, manicured garden to meet him. The second I saw him, standing there, his back to me, looking so handsome in his suit, my heart did a little flip. He looked every bit as nervous as I felt. When he turned around, the look in his eyes, a mixture of awe, love, and pure happiness, made every single second of the preceding months of drama completely melt away. "Clara," he breathed, his voice thick with emotion. You look incredible." In that perfect, sun-drenched moment, I knew this was what it was all about. This was the moment I had been fighting to protect. Nothing else mattered. Or so I thought. We were about 30 minutes from the ceremony start time. I was back in the bridal suite doing some last-minute touch-ups when Olivia came rushing in. Her face was pale and she looked flustered, an expression so out of character for my normally unflappable best friend that it immediately set off alarm bells in my head. "You are not going to believe this," she said, her voice a strained whisper. My stomach plummeted. "What? What is it?" "They're here," she said, her eyes wide. "Zoe and your mom are here." The blood drained from my face. "What? How?" I stammered. "I thought security was handling it. I gave them photos." "They are," Olivia said, trying to reassure me. "Security stopped them at the main gate, but Clara, they're causing a huge scene." Of course they were. This was their grand finale. I took a deep, shaky breath, trying to steady myself against the vanity. "What are they saying? What are they doing?" Olivia hesitated, which told me it was bad. "Your mom is crying," she said gently, like full-on waterworks, telling the guards she's the mother of the bride and she just wants to see her daughter get married. "And Zoe," Olivia sighed. "Well, Zoe is screaming. She's yelling about how you're a horrible, cruel person and how you don't deserve this day." I felt a hot surge of rage, so powerful it almost made me dizzy. It wasn't enough for them to make the months leading up to the wedding a living nightmare. They had to try and physically ruin the actual day, too. They wanted to create a spectacle, to pull focus, to make themselves the center of attention one last time. "What do you want me to do?" Olivia asked, her expression a mixture of fury on my behalf and concern for my well-being. I looked at my reflection in the mirror. I saw the anger in my eyes, but underneath it, there was a core of steel I didn't know I had. "Nothing," I said, my voice surprisingly firm and clear. "You do nothing. Let security handle it. That's what we hired them for. If we go out there, if we engage at all, we're just giving them exactly what they want." Olivia nodded, relief washing over her face, and she slipped out to check in with the guards. I sat down, my hands clasped in my lap to stop them from shaking. I could faintly hear their raised voices carrying on the breeze, a muffled sound of anger and chaos intruding on our peaceful sanctuary. It took every ounce of my willpower not to march out there and unleash the torrent of fury I had been holding back for months. A few minutes later, Olivia came back with an update. "They're refusing to leave," she reported. "The venue manager is out there now. He offered to call the police, but he's worried it will cause an even bigger scene and delay the ceremony." I let out a low groan. This was precisely the kind of behavior that had led me to uninvite them in the first place. "Do you want me to tell Leo?" Olivia asked softly. I shook my head immediately. "No," I said. "He doesn't need this stress right now. Just make sure they don't get anywhere near the ceremony space." Thankfully, the security team was worth every penny. They were professional and firm, creating a calm barrier against my family's chaos. Eventually, the venue staff, seeing that my mom and Zoe had no intention of leaving voluntarily, called a ride service to come and take them away. But not before Zoe got in one last shot, shouting loud enough for anyone in the vicinity to hear. "You'll regret this, Clara. You'll regret cutting out your own family." Once they were gone, a heavy silence fell over the grounds. I took another deep breath and told myself to let it go. They were out of sight, and I refused to let them live rent-free in my head for one more second. The ceremony itself was everything I had ever dreamed of, and more. As I walked down the aisle, seeing Leo waiting for me with tears in his eyes, I was overwhelmed with a sense of love and gratitude. Standing up there with him, surrounded by the smiling faces of our closest friends and family, the supportive ones at least, I felt a profound sense of victory. This was what mattered. Not the drama, not the bitterness, not the hate. Just this. Just us. During the cocktail hour that followed, I started to hear bits and pieces about what had gone down in the parking lot. Apparently, my mom had accused the guards of being heartless, while Zoe had told them I was brainwashed by Leo and that our entire family would never forgive me for this betrayal. A few guests had overheard them, which was embarrassing, but most people who mentioned it to me just rolled their eyes and brushed it off as the pathetic spectacle it was. My wonderful Aunt Carol came up to me during dinner, squeezed my hand, and said, "I am so proud of you for standing your ground today. They showed their true colors, and trust me, everyone sees it now." That was a common sentiment throughout the night. One by one, cousins, friends, and even some of my mom's old acquaintances pulled me aside to tell me they were on my side, that they couldn't believe the scene my mom and Zoe had caused. It felt like a collective reckoning, a moment where the curtain was pulled back and everyone finally saw the toxicity I had been dealing with for years. The rest of the evening was a joyous, beautiful blur of laughter, dancing, and pure, unadulterated happiness. Leo and I shared our first dance under a canopy of twinkling lights. Olivia gave a hilarious and heartfelt toast that had everyone both laughing and crying. My dad's best friend, who's been like an uncle to me my whole life, brought the house down with an embarrassing story about a young Leo trying to sneak a whole plate of ribs out of a family barbecue. By the time the night ended, I felt lighter than I had in months. My mom and Zoe hadn't won. Their desperate last-ditch attempt to ruin our day had backfired spectacularly. All it did was highlight how much love and support Leo and I truly had from the people who actually mattered. When I got back to our hotel suite that night, I glanced at my phone and saw a dozen missed calls and a flood of angry texts from my mom. I didn't bother reading a single one. I just deleted them all. I was done letting them take up any more space in my life. Cutting them out was one of the hardest decisions I have ever had to make, but standing there with my new husband, surrounded by so much genuine love, I knew without a single doubt that it was the right one. Hey again, everyone. You won't believe what happened about a week after the wedding. I was just starting to settle into a blissful, drama-free routine with Leo when I got a call from my cousin Chloe, who, as usual, was the first to deliver the family gossip. "You are not going to believe what just happened," she said, and I could hear the excitement in her voice. I braced myself. "What now?" I sighed, half expecting another story about a new rumor Zoe was spreading. "Your mom and Zoe had a huge fight," Chloe announced, like an epic, screaming throwdown fight. She paused for dramatic effect. "And get this, your mom kicked her out of the house." I almost dropped my phone. Wait, what? Seriously? What happened? Chloe was more than happy to fill me in on all the glorious karmic details. Apparently, in the week following the wedding, Zoe had been sulking around my mom's house like a thundercloud, stewing over the fact that her grand plan to ruin my day had been an abject failure. According to Chloe, she was blaming absolutely everyone but herself. Me, Leo, the security guards, the venue manager, even some random cousin who apparently didn't try hard enough to convince her to let her in. The real explosion happened when she finally turned her rage on my mom. Zoe started screaming at her, accusing her of not doing enough to stop the wedding. She yelled that it was Mom's fault I'd gone through with it, that Mom should have been more forceful, that she should have manipulated me harder to convince me to cancel. And my mom, the woman who has coddled, enabled, and defended Zoe's atrocious behavior for her entire life, finally hit her breaking point. Chloe said my mom yelled right back, telling Zoe that she was sick and tired of the constant drama, that Zoe was a grown woman who needed to finally take some responsibility for her own disastrous life choices. Zoe, as you can imagine, did not take that well. She apparently launched into a full-blown narcissistic rant, accusing our mom of failing her as a parent, of never supporting her, and, in the ultimate betrayal in Zoe's eyes, of choosing me over her. The fight got so bad, so loud and vicious, that my mom finally snapped and told Zoe to pack her things and get out of her house. When Chloe finished telling me all this, I just stood there in my kitchen, speechless for a moment. Then, I couldn't help it. I started to laugh. It wasn't a laugh of malice, not really. It was a laugh of sheer, dumbfounded irony. For months, my mom had defended Zoe, taken her side in every argument, and enabled her toxic campaign against me. And in the end, that same toxicity had come right back to bite her. Their toxic alliance had imploded under its own weight. She really kicked her out? I asked, still trying to process the beautiful poetry of it all. Yep, Chloe confirmed. Zoe's staying with a friend for now, but I wouldn't be surprised if she comes crawling back in a few weeks when she runs out of couches to surf on. The whole situation felt like karma delivering a long overdue invoice. In the end, their toxicity turned inward, and they took each other down. I wish I could say I felt a shred of sympathy for either of them, but honestly, I didn't. After everything they put me and Leo through, it just felt like poetic justice. As for me, I am completely, totally, and blissfully done with both of them. I've blocked their numbers, muted their profiles on all social media, and have made it crystal clear to Aunt Carol, Chloe, and the rest of the supportive family that I am no longer interested in hearing about their latest antics or dramas. That chapter is closed. Leo and I are focusing on starting our new life together, and it feels wonderful, free. It turns out protecting your peace, even when it's the hardest thing you'll ever have to do, is always worth it. Life without Chloe didn't change dramatically at first, not on the surface. My disciplined routine was the bedrock of my life, and it held firm. I still got up at 6 a.m., the house cloaked in a pre-dawn stillness that now felt more peaceful than empty. The gym was the same, a familiar landscape of clanking iron and quiet determination. My days were filled with work, diving into client projects and lines of code that behaved with a predictability I had come to appreciate more than ever. The house was quieter, yes, but it wasn't an oppressive silence. It was a clean slate. I had more time to think, more time to focus on the person I'd been neglecting while trying to manage a partnership with someone who was apparently already halfway out the door. What did throw me off, however, was the sheer ease with which she had walked away. It was that cold, hard fact that my mind kept returning to in the quiet moments. I found myself replaying the last few months, scrolling back through our shared history like a detective looking for clues I'd missed. Were there signs she was unhappy? Were there moments I should have noticed her pulling away? A subtle shift in her gaze or a new distance in her touch? Honestly, I came up with nothing. Our relationship wasn't a fairy tale, but it wasn't on life support either. We didn't have screaming matches or dramatic, tear-filled fights. Our disagreements were about the mundane, trivial things that couples bicker about. Who left the toothpaste cap off? What to order for dinner on a Friday night? That time I said her favorite indie movie was pretentious, normal, everyday couple friction. Chloe had never once mentioned feeling stuck or lost. She never gave me any real warning that she was contemplating hitting the eject button on our life together. She just decided. And that, more than anything, was the thorn that pricked at my pride. A relationship is supposed to be a partnership, a team. You don't just unilaterally decide to bench yourself and expect your teammate to wait patiently on the sidelines. You talk, you communicate, you figure things out together, even when it's hard. She didn't give me that courtesy. She made her decision in a vacuum and expected me to just sit around, twiddling my thumbs until she was ready to grace me with her presence again. No, thank you. Word of our split began to travel through our social circles with predictable speed. My sister was the first to call. She just left? Just like that? She asked, her voice a mixture of shock and indignation on my behalf. I gave her the abbreviated version, the request for a break, my non-negotiable terms. She didn't hesitate in her support. "Good for you, Liam," she said, her tone firm. "You did the right thing. Don't you dare let her walk all over you. If she doesn't know what she has, that's her loss, not yours." Her words were a comfort, a welcome echo of my own convictions. Then there was Ben, my best friend and unofficial therapist, who swung by the house a couple of nights later with a six-pack of beer. He wasn't a man for sentimental pep talks. He was a pragmatist, much like me. He took a look around the quiet living room, then looked at me. "So, she's really gone," he stated. "Yep," I said, popping the cap off a bottle. "She needed a break to find herself." Ben snorted. "Find herself? At the bottom of a bottle or with some other dude, probably." He took a long swallow of beer, then set the bottle down and looked me straight in the eye. "You dodged a bullet, man. Seriously. If she's this indecisive and disrespectful now, over nothing, imagine how she'd act in a real crisis." That stuck with me long after he left. A real crisis. What if we'd been married? What if we had kids and a mortgage that depended on both of us? What if one of us got sick? If she couldn't handle the gentle rolling hills of a stable relationship, how could I ever expect her to climb a mountain with me? It was better to find this out now, before our lives became even more entangled. By the end of the week, I had made a fragile peace with the situation. If Chloe wanted her break, she could have it. I wasn't going to chase her or waste my energy wondering what she was up to. But it didn't take long for the whispers to start. In a close-knit neighborhood with a lot of mutual friends, secrets have a short shelf life. I wasn't about to go around announcing the details of my breakup, but apparently Chloe didn't operate with the same level of discretion. The first hint came in a text from our mutual friend Mark. It was about a week after Chloe left. "Hey man, hope you're doing okay," it read. "Ran into Chloe at the pier last night. She seemed different." Different? What the hell was that supposed to mean? I stared at the word, my thumb hovering over the keyboard. It was vague, loaded with implication. Was she happy? Sad? A mess? I didn't reply right away. In fact, I didn't reply at all. I didn't want to unpack the subtlety. Let her be different. She wasn't my problem anymore. A couple of days later, the whispers got louder. My phone rang, and it was another friend, Sarah. "Hey, Liam," she started, and I could immediately hear the hesitation in her voice. I wasn't sure if I should tell you this." It's always a fantastic opening line, a guaranteed prelude to something you probably don't want to hear. "Just spit it out, Sarah," I said, bracing myself. "Okay, well, I saw Chloe out with some guy at the Grafton pub last night," she said in a rush. "They looked kind of cozy, you know?" Cozy. That was the word that stuck with me. It wasn't a pang of jealousy. It wasn't a sense of loss. It was a quiet, sinking feeling of insult. Not even 2 weeks after she'd left my house, supposedly to embark on some grand journey of self-discovery, she was already getting cozy with someone else. It confirmed the suspicion that had been growing in the back of my mind. This break was never about finding herself. It was about seeing what else was out there, and clearly she wasn't wasting a single moment. It wasn't even about me wanting her back anymore. It was about a fundamental lack of respect for the 5 years we had shared. Clara's heart-wrenching journey gives us one of the most difficult but vital lessons we can learn in life. Protecting your own peace is not selfish, it is necessary. So often, we are told that family is everything and that we must endure conflict, disrespect, and even emotional manipulation in the name of loyalty. We are conditioned to believe that setting a boundary is an act of aggression rather than what it truly is, an act of profound self-preservation. This story is a powerful reminder that you are not obligated to set yourself on fire to keep others warm. Clara's ultimate victory wasn't about winning an argument or proving her sister and mother wrong. It was about finding the immense courage to choose her own happiness, to build a fortress around her mental well-being, and to start a new life with a partner who respected and validated her. She showed us that the pain of cutting toxic ties, as immense as it can be in the moment, is often the necessary surgery to allow for a future of genuine, untroubled joy. It teaches us that true family are the people who celebrate your happiness, not the ones who see it as a threat to their own. Your life, your love, and your peace are worth defending, even if the battle is with those you are supposed to love the most. Stories like Clara's, with their complex emotions and relatable struggles, are the entire reason this YouTube channel exists. We believe in the power of narrative to help us understand our own lives and to feel less alone in our experiences. If this story resonated with you, if you found yourself cheering for Clara or feeling the frustration of her impossible situation, please take a moment to hit the like button. It's a small click for you, but it tells the algorithm that these kinds of thoughtful, deep-diving stories matter, helping our community to grow. And if you want to continue exploring the messy, beautiful, and dramatic realities of the human experience with us, make sure you subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications so you never miss a new story. Your support is what allows us to keep finding and sharing these powerful journeys. We are building a family here, a global community connected by stories, and we would be honored to have you as a part of it. We know these themes touch people from all corners of the globe, and it is always incredible to see how universal these feelings are. To help us celebrate our amazing community, please leave a comment below and let us know which region or country you are watching from today. Thank you for being here, for listening, and for being part of this conversation.